Don't worry, it's me. I'm doing things a little bit out of order because I haven't finished reading The Phantom of the Opera or Antigone, but in all honesty, I don't need to finish reading The Phantom of the Opera or Antigone to talk about the things that I want to talk about concerning them. That's the whole theme of the month of January, reading for me. I'm reading things that I already know, that I'm going to enjoy reading, though apparently not enough to finish them on time. And I'll get to that with Phantom of the Opera. Um, and then I will talk about some things that aren't books, um, including The Phantom of the Opera. So I have already talked about this a couple of times and held it up, but I wanted to hold it up again as a book that passed the test, and I'm going to keep it. And I've already talked about it, and I've written about it, and as with this book, the way that I wrote about it is much more eloquent and makes a lot more sense than the way that I talked about it. So those links were probably in the cooking video. I'm hoping to do more cooking videos, but they will also be in this video because I'm not going to... It's been a while since I read both of these books now, and I remember them because I liked them, but I'm not going to try to talk about them again because I did so poorly when they were fresh in my mind. However, I was hoping to maybe show a few pictures. Did I plan for this and bookmark the pictures? No, but why shouldn't I show them anyway? Couple of conjoined twins here, the Tochi brothers. If I can find the Chang and Ang. Oh, well, not Chang and Ang, but the Hilton twins, who can be seen in the movie Freaks. Perhaps these they might be tied with Chang and Ang for the most famous Siamese twins. Here are Chang and Ang, the original Siamese twins. And look them up, they've got an amazing story. All of these people do, really, but those two have an amazing story and they're famous, so I have more of a memory of what that story is. One of the first freaks who I learned about was Grace McDaniels, the mule-faced woman, the ugliest woman in the world, who got... I learned about her from my Latin teacher, and she got many, many, many marriage proposals. Perhaps more because she was famous than that she looked the way that she did. But she only accepted one, so that was probably somebody who proved that they weren't just in it for publicity. I'll try to find a link to an actual story, but on Saturday Night Live last week they made a joke about a mule born with a deformity that made it look like its face was human. So I'll try to find that, to put that in here, and trying to find... Here's... Maybe there's a better one. I don't know, but of course the one who got the play and the movie, The Elephant Man, Joseph Merrick. Look him up, see the movie. The movie, produced by Mel Brooks. I may have mentioned that before, produced by Mel Brooks, but Mel Brooks didn't have his name on it because if Mel Brooks' name is on a movie called The Elephant Man, people get the wrong impression. So that's that for those two books, which I had already talked about. And a brief DVD portion. I almost made it through January without buying any DVDs, but I didn't. And here they are. Now, I've heard, I don't know much about this movie other than Warwick Davis. Warwick Davis without any prosthetics, without any special effects, like you may be used to seeing him, without a little Ewok costume. Just Warwick Davis, the person. His face fully visible. The human. And I've seen him in the Harry Potters and the Star Treks and the Star Warses and probably some other things, and I didn't even recognize him. But here, I just am excited to see him play a human being or a wizard. I don't know what. I don't even know if he's Willow, but I will find out soon. So I've heard good things about this movie. Story by George Lucas, although he didn't do the script apparently. Directed by Ron Howard. I am primed to enjoy this movie. I may or may not get back to you on that. And this I had to get. It is my roommate. She loves The Simpsons, and so but she doesn't want to own all 30. You don't want 30 things this thick sitting on your shelf. But the third season, the first episode of the third season, is forbidden. And I say forbidden by Disney. Disney owns The Simpsons now. And I won't tell you why. You can look up why. Why is not the point. The point is Disney made the episode disappear from streaming, from Disney Plus or Hulu or wherever they're going to keep The Simpsons, and from syndication. And when you look it up, you'll see why. On the one hand, maybe people don't want to see it, but on the other hand, they don't have to watch it when it comes on. They don't have to search it on the streaming. They can, they can pay attention to the autoplay if they get to the end of season 2. But usually, in my experience with streaming, when you get to the end of a season, they don't automatically play the first episode of the next season. And so this was actually an important find for me because the physical media, Disney can't make a used DVD of this. They can make the episode not available on future DVD releases of season 3 of The Simpsons, but they can't make the DVDs that already exist disappear. And so as someone who, and this doesn't happen all the time, although maybe it will happen more and more, but my roommate loves The Simpsons. Early Simpsons are great. We will enjoy every episode of this season, but having the thing that is supposed to have disappeared, that is forbidden to be seen by the owners, that is the important thing about having this. So I was very happy to find this. And as important and as cool as it is to talk about this book, the point of bringing it back up, I talked about it a little bit because I think I had just started reading it when I did the cooking thing. The point of bringing up this book is to bring up this leaf. Jurassic Park, the book, came out in the early 90s. The movie came out a couple years after the book came out. And this was used, I didn't beat it up this much. I beat it up, but I didn't beat it up this much. This was used when I got it, when one of my parents got it for me for some reason when I was a child in the single digits age-wise, and apparently incapable of reading it because I read, I think that I might have been 10 because The Lost World had come out, I think, and I recognized the opening scene, one of the opening scenes from the book, from the opening of the Lost World movie. And so maybe I was 10. But that scene is where I found this leaf. I didn't make it farther than that scene. I put this leaf in as a bookmark in, let's say, 1997. And 9 years later, when I actually read the book in 2006, yes, 9 years later, the leaf was still there. And so I used it as a bookmark. And then, 14 years later, give or take, the leaf was still there, and I used it as a bookmark again on this read. And the leaf will still be there, as it has been for now 23 years. It will still be there when I crack open this book again in 10 years and however long. I love reading this book almost as much as I love watching the movie. I think I actually probably favor the movie, but I go back and forth on it as I go over in the blog post about it, because on the one hand, the book is more thorough, things make more sense. The movie has to blur lines here and there in order to get everything in a tight 2 hours. Actually, the movie is it seems epic, but by today's movie standards, when movies go 2.5 hours at least, I think most Harry Potter movies are 2.5 hours at least, some are longer. 1 or 2 of them is 2:15. Definitely the Lord of the Rings movies. They're up towards 3 hours, and that's the non-extended editions. So I go back and forth, which is why I maintain the book and the movie of Jurassic Park complement each other well, and you should experience both. It's a very easy read, even with all the science. In fact, the science, I can say, is easy because that's how I know that the book is so thorough and things make more sense in the book, and it annoys me just a little that, for instance, Alan Grant somehow knows, before he even knows that dinosaurs have been cloned in the movie, he knows that T-Rex's uh, vision is based on movement, which we don't even really know for sure now because we haven't cloned T-Rexes. Um, he figures it out in the book in real time when it's most important for him to know. Um, and in the write-up, I pitch my not slow, but my prestige television episodic remake of Jurassic Park, single season of television, Ruby Rose as Ian Malcolm, uh, Michael B. Jordan as Alan Grant, and go from there. Um, but but yeah, read and watch. This is a great pairing. This is one of the classics. This and the movie are my favorite adaptations of the book Frankenstein, it's not my favorite book. It's not even my favorite monster book, as we'll get to. But it is what I think is the greatest achievement in literature, Frankenstein is. And these are my favorite adaptations of Frankenstein. And maybe one day there will be a movie adaptation of Frankenstein that I like. So that is that book. Since that will lead into a different topic of conversation, this. This, not going to say much about it. This was the first non-musical play that I was ever in, and even as I say that, I'm remembering, as I sometimes do, that in second grade I played a duck in a thing on stage, and that might have been without music, but I have trouble believing it didn't have music involved because I was in second grade. It was probably mostly music, but I played the messenger, which meant that I was kind of brooding in the corner of the stage at the very beginning of the play, and then at the end I said this monologue here about how the queen is dead, and well, like I said, I haven't finished reading it yet, so I don't remember everything that I say, but I wore that same Latin teacher. I wore his long leather trench coat, which the Fonz from Happy Days is why I got into leather jackets, but that long leather trench coat is why I got into long leather trench coats, not the Matrix, my Latin teacher. And I don't see the point of owning a lot of leather clothes, but the one leather, and I could go with a used one. I could go with his if you ever wanted to get rid of it. But I do want eventually one day a long leather trench coat. Maybe used. Maybe they stop making anything out of leather and you can only get them used, and then it might get expensive, but still. Antigone, my entry into Greek theater. I studied the Greek myths in Latin classes because they're related. And I'd seen the Hercules movie and the Wishbone stuff. I got to remember to watch the Wishbone episode of Phantom of the Opera. But Greek theater, Greek drama. This is a adaptation, translation type thing of the story of Antigone. So we'll go with that. And then this is a view that I've often wanted to show, which is these are the towers of books. These are the about to reads, which I do talk about in these videos. So about to reads for Black History Month. We have The Life and Times of Frederick Douglass, Cain by Jean Toomer, Life of a Slave Girl, Harriet Jacobs, Trumpet by Jackie Kay, Harriet Tubman by Earl Conrad. It was one of the earliest comprehensive biographies of Harriet Tubman, and I'm hoping that the new Tubman movie with Cynthia Erivo becomes available to me streaming or otherwise around the time that I finish reading this book. And then as a bridge, any of these last ones could serve as a bridge to Women's History Month, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. And all the while, And since January 5th, I've been reading this, which you may recall I celebrated finding my advanced, uncorrected proof, not for sale, on Broadway, on a bookstand, on a table, used, some guy selling, found it. And now it is available in paperback, and I was waiting for that, but I didn't have to. I'm 250, and by the end of today, 260 pages in, and this year I'm free of my pledge to not look ahead at how many pages a thing has, so I can say that's 250 out of 764, and I'm going 10 pages at a time, so I won't be done with this until March. And at the same time, I'll be reading the 600-page Frederick Douglass memoir. But I have learned everything I can about Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, also upstate New York 19th century activists, and Frederick Douglass has always been on the periphery because they knew each other, they worked together, and I never looked into him as much as I looked into them. They are the center of my musical. I gave tours of the Susan B. Anthony house, and there was never really a Frederick Douglass site in Rochester that was the equivalent of the Susan B. Anthony house, or maybe I would have given tours there too. So I owe it to him, and I'm playing catch up this year. And he's got 2 other memoirs. Everyone's read the tiny little thin one. Eventually, I will read the 3rd one, but I don't currently have it, and I'm excited to read those. This is very good. Let's see. Oh, only 17 minutes in. So this will hopefully be a reasonably long one. So I only have one more thing to talk about. The Phantom of the Opera, which is really 3 or 4 or however many things to talk about, because this is the source material of my favorite musical, and this is my 3rd copy of the book. When I was first getting into the Phantom of the Opera, my parents got me a Barnes & Noble paperback edition that has a really beautiful illustration on the cover, but it's not a good translation, and it's not a great book. And then I have another that I found used. It's a tiny little book. I may or may not ever actually read it, but it's got Michael Crawford as the Phantom on the cover. So I keep it for that reason, and I'll frame it one day maybe, and put it up near Phantom Bear. This translation is by Mireille Ribière. I'm going to go with that. But just, look up the Penguin Classics edition from 2009. It's supposed to be a great translation, and which, again, it can be hard to tell if the translation's any good when the book isn't necessarily. But it's the most recent, and I like it. I'm enjoying it, but it is a little bit frustrating sometimes. The Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, which is my favorite musical and my favorite piece of culture, piece of art that there is the best version of this story. I've seen a couple of the other movies, 3 or 4 movie versions, including Andrew Lloyd Webber's movie version. I have written that A24, Jason Blum, they're doing the Dark Universe, classic Universal monsters, and Phantom is one of them. And I have written, and I'm even more convinced as I read the dialogue in this book that the Phantom says, which is not a lot, that Adam Driver should play the Phantom if the Phantom must be in the story. And that's where the interesting thing that I have to say about this book comes in, which is, I saw the musical on Monday. It is wonderful. It's like stepping back in time twice. It's like you go back in time to the 80s when you see a musical that was written now, and it's rapid fire, constant jokes, constant music. It doesn't stop. And the sets are always moving, and they are what Phantom's reputation is that it is. But Phantom, there are long, awkward pauses, and there's darkness, and there's very little actually on the stage. There's a couple of huge set pieces, but mostly it's blank stage, this little thing here, and people gathered around it. And a lot of the scenes with the theater owners, the notes scenes, uh, they kind of walk randomly around the stage as the Phantom is as the Phantom's voice is making circles around the theater, and the title song, as ubiquitous, and maybe you find it annoying as it is, but you hear it live, and you can't really hear the lyrics are great on the recording. You can't really hear them as well because when it's live. Um, but the title song, the musicians are either they're doing riff-like things that they always do, or they're enjoying the fact that they're playing this '80s hair ballad, um, which most Broadway pit orchestras don't get to do. And just hearing all the things that they do outside of what happens on the recording, outside of the official version of how it should sound, is wonderful. And seeing the candles rise is wonderful. It's quite an experience, and it's like going back in time twice, because you go back to the '80s to when the musicals were slower um, and things moved creakily when stagecraft was required, because you didn't have projections of video projections, you didn't have LED lights. There's a lot of that, and then the opera scenes within Phantom of the Opera, which are imitating how 19th century opera was performed and how the sets looked. The giant elephant that comes out during the Hannibal scene, costumes and things for that. So it's like going back in time twice. But anyway, I don't need to say anything about what the Phantom of the Opera is about. You know what the Phantom of the Opera is about, especially if you know me. But the conclusion that I came to starting to read this book, and it was more and more, I was more and more convinced as I did it, the way that, for instance, I could put a new stamp on Phantom of the Opera is do a movie where the Phantom doesn't actually exist. He's in Christine's mind. Carlotta in the musical has a line, just, she's mad, and maybe she is. Because the Phantom isn't directly the narrator, the person who you're in their mind, doesn't directly encounter the Phantom until the very end of the book. And other than that, it's people's account of the Phantom, especially Christine's. And so it could be Christine making it up. And it could be Madame Giry covering for her. And the Persian, I don't know if he has an actual name. He'd have a name in my version. So in my version, Christine it's that the Phantom is another personality in her head that developed after her father died, and that traumatic experience, and she's a lot of pressure on her to perform, and the Phantom becomes a protective second personality, and she does some of the things that the Phantom does, not everything. Even in the book, when Madame Giry is being interrogated about how did the Phantom make the chandelier fall, and in the musical, the Phantom does make the chandelier fall, but in the book she says, it was old, it fell, the place is falling apart. And I had already kind of thought that, well, gotta justify Madame Giry taking the Phantom's monthly payments. Maybe the theater owners don't take care of the theater, and it means something to her because her daughter's in the ballet corps, and so she takes the money, pays the Persian, who's a handyman, to fix things, and she's been raising money to fix the chandelier, and it falls before she can fix it. So things like that, and also for purposes of cinematic things, Christine is a singer, and the Phantom's training supposedly makes her the best singer. That is what the story is. So you don't hear the Phantom's voice often, at least early in the book, and by the end, if this is the twist, then you don't have to hear the Phantom's voice much. But you get an actor who is an incredible singer, and I would refer you to seeing Us and Lupita Nyong'o's performance, Sis, in Us. She plays two characters. She does, creepy things with her voice, and that would be the thing. Christine would have Christine's voice, but she would also have a low, very masculine phantom voice that she would produce, kind of like stagecraft, but acting. Um, and so that's anyway. That's my pitch, and there are other elements. Um, Part of it, I mean, the Phantom. One of his rival is Raoul, and Raoul, not even when the choice is between Raoul and the Phantom, not the best choice of love interest. Um, Maybe better than the Phantom, maybe not. Um, there's literally a place in here where she says, "How did you know? Because I. How did you know this thing that you know that you shouldn't know? Because I was hiding in your closet in your dressing room while you were getting ready for something." That's not that's not something that somebody does if they want to be your love interest, or they do, but then you shouldn't accept them as your love interest. So anyway, that is my pitch. Those are my thoughts. I'm going to now finish this book. I got 40 pages to go, and then I have 40 pages in this book to go, and then I will write about them, and then I will post those writings on my blog, and then I will post this video on YouTube. So I've already done all that if you're watching this. Um, and and then I'll have other links to the Jurassic Park stuff, and stuff like that. I'm also got some pictures that I'm going to put on Instagram, so look on Instagram. You may have noticed, or maybe not, because maybe like me, you don't like leaving comments on things, but you can't leave comments below, and that's because of the settings on YouTube, and I'm figuring out whether I want to change the settings so that you can leave comments, but if you have a comment, you can send it to me via Twitter. And yeah, that's a good only 27 minutes. This might be this is definitely one of my shortest. I am going to leave it there. But isn't that a great idea for Phantom of the Opera and for Jurassic Park? I am waiting for somebody to put me in charge of these projects and give me the resources to see them through. Yeah, so ram the blade ship.